Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's not just Friday, it's Good Friday in your nation's capital at 5:07. Thank you for being part of our holiday weekend extravaganza, launching you into weekend where you can be circumspect, retrospective about how you fit into God's great plan of this universe, and then on Sunday celebrate some pretty good news. Thanks for being part of what we're going to do here this morning. And joining us at 6:35 is Dan Cox, former candidate for governor in Maryland, now running for the Republican nomination in the 6th District of Maryland. 7:35, Scott Allen, Washington Post reporter, is going to tell us about yesterday's first day of the baseball season. Pretty exciting day at Camden Yards up there for the Orioles. And then at 8:05, Jeff Kloa, Chief Curatorial Officer of the Museum of the Bible, to acknowledge this very holy weekend in the Christian calendar. Thanks for being part of it. I'm Larry O'Connor, and there's Patrice Onwuka, and a Good Friday to you.
Good Friday, and happy Friday.
Okay, I was wondering if you were going to go with the Good Friday situation.
I'm going to respect the sanctity of Good Friday. Yeah. And then the Friday is just a little bit extra on top, but
sure. All right. So we can have a Good Friday and a happy Friday. I think I'm good with that. All right. Thank you for being with us this morning, Patrice.
Oh yeah, of course. Good morning.
Now, a lot of, like most people in this area, people are taking spring break either back in my day, back when I was a youth. First of all, we didn't call it spring break. We called it Easter vacation.
That's true, yeah.
This is when it always started. This would be the first day of vacation, or some schools. I remember in elementary school, we had Good Friday off, but then I think that got reversed at some point, and we went to school on Friday, but then next week, starting with Easter, next week was the Easter vacation. But, of course, now it's spring break, and it's all over the map. Some systems take spring break early or later. And all those various sort of determinations based on where you live, which is, I think, is problematic, because they try to make it fit into the school calendar rather than make it work into the holiday calendar. So, like for some people, they took spring break last week, and Easter will be the last day, and they got to go right back to school the next day.
My county, that's what we did, yeah.
The point is, yes, you just came back from your spring break with your children. And how was it? I
did. It was a blast, Larry. I don't have a tan. We actually went further north. I know some folks usually get away to a sunny. Well, no, some places people get away to the sunnier shores. We actually went to New Jersey and to Atlantic City. And yes, it is cold, and there was not a lot to do up there. However, yes, there is one attraction for families, I think, in Atlantic City.
Yeah, I was going to say, this doesn't, because you have little kids. I don't know if I would take my little kids to Atlantic City.
My oldest is just 11, and the youngest is 3. So we weren't taking in shows, and we weren't hitting the casinos, but we did go to their brand new water park that is towards the end of the boardwalk. It's called Island Water Park, and it's built into the Showboat Hotel. I'm not paid to promote them. I'm literally just sharing my experience, but yes, it is the only redeeming quality on the boardwalk right now in Atlantic City.
And it is definitely geared toward family. Is it indoor?
It's indoor, so it's a year-round water park, which is fantastic.
It's like the Great Wolf Lodge down in Williamsburg.
Similar, yeah,
They've got
exactly.
one of those, which is fun.
Exactly.
Indoor water parks are actually kind of fun. The kids go nuts. Except I always worry that there's just, the disease in the water floating around there.
Like
the water version
clear.
of the Chuck E. Cheese ball pit,
And the good thing, it was a lot of chlorine, which is good. Yes. It's killing all those germs.
Kill everything. Kill it all.
But the way it was laid out, Larry, was actually great. And there is an adults-only section, which is even better, because you could walk right in, go through this smoky lobby of this what is it called? The Showboat Hotel. I did not stay there. I wouldn't even recommend staying there. But you get to the adult pool. There's a DJ, a massive screen. The pool has seats inside the pool itself, so you can sit down and have your drink in the pool. They have their own cabana. They have their own drink stand with adult drinks, and they do lock the place away from the kiddos. So when we went, it was kind of quiet, so they let the kids go swimming.
I'm getting a little nervous now.
But...
It sounds like this is like the grotto at the Playboy Mansion. You come to the adults only water park and let your freak flag fly.
I think it's good for if you have kids that you don't need to really shepherd or chaperone the whole time.
Gotcha.
Whereas your big kids can go, there are massive multi-story slides,
right,
water slides.
And they have like the
ones.
big climbing apparatus thing that's got various levels and water dumping on you, and kids love that.
They love that. There are lots of different places.
Well,
my
that's
boys
cool.
went on the kid slides like 100 times. I just sat in a chair and just watched them go round and round and round and round. And kids were getting hurt, but you know what? It's all in good fun.
Here's my problem: how many parents drop their kids off at the water park? And I'm sure they have like the little ID bracelets and stuff they give the kids, right? So they can't get out without a parent and stuff. Drop the kids off at the water park, and then they're sitting at the roulette table for like 8 hours straight.
Oh, I bet.
Sucking down the Pall Malls and drinking the bourbon. And
for sure. But you know what? It's something that you could bring your family to, and if your thing is the casino and you want some alone time with you and the machine, you had that option.
Some good quality family time with you and Double Diamond Deluxe. Absolutely. Everyone, you got to get away. You got to get away. Well, good. Well, I'm glad because honestly, when you said you were taking a family spring break vacation to Atlantic City, I was a little nervous because not top on my list.
I know it's usually not, but I do. At least this water park was worth it. And then the hotel.
Were you able to do like a nice stroll up the boardwalk and do the whole historic?
Oh, it was frigid. No way. It was frigid and windy. It was frigid and windy. So we only either stayed in our hotel, which is actually one of the newest hotels and really nice too, and it had its own pool, or we went to one of the local spots that we go to. Cuban food. Oh my gosh, it was so good.
Oh, I love a good Cuban restaurant.
Yes.
I don't want to make this awkward, but I mean, I don't see a big box of saltwater taffy in the break room. I mean, there's. It's kind of a thing. If you go to Ocean City or Atlantic City, I mean, everyone who works at WMAL, if they hear about this, they're expecting the saltlarry taffy.
I have apologies for everybody. I didn't get any. I didn't know. I didn't. Larry, you did not tell me in advance. I needed to bring some. Okay, next time.
It's 5:15 on this Good Friday and spring break version of O'Connor and Company. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives with Steve Hirshhorn in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Continuing on our sort of holiday preparations for this weekend, a lot of people are already off. Today will be the first day of their extended weekend. A lot of companies still observing Good Friday as a day off. And they're making their plans, and it's good to see that the weather's going to be beautiful this Sunday, as we've had, cold and sort of drizzly, miserable weather pretty much this week. Then that's going to be fantastic. If people are getting away, though, the Federal Aviation Authority is warning right now that travel delays could be a major issue.
Oh, no.
They're looking at a lot of delays, not just this weekend, but really through the first couple of weeks of April, not just because of Easter and various intersecting spring break holidays, but also apparently on Monday, April 8th, a week from this Monday, there is going to be a stellar lunar eclipse. And, there's people who travel all over the country to see eclipses. They're like, they hunt eclipses down. Have you ever seen like a full-on perfect eclipse before?
Yes.
They're phenomenal to watch, aren't they?
It's surreal.
Oh, it's understandable why the pagans back in, the early BCs thought it was, God was really up to something when they saw an eclipse going on. Well, the Great North American Eclipse is going to be seen in its totality beginning over the South Pacific Ocean and eventually in 13 U.S. states in the southwest region spanning up to the northeast, this according to the Washington Examiner. And there's a huge sort of migration of people toward the end of next week who are sort of making this part of their spring break. They're saying, all right, let's go down to Arizona. we'll have a nice time in Scottsdale. We'll do some golfing, do some hiking, and then we'll see the eclipse on April 8th. And it's really cool, actually, if you see you can chart it out, figure out where it's going to be and stuff. Although, actually, the optimal places, it looks like, I'm checking out this map here that the FAA and the United National Science Foundation has provided.
Yes.
It looks like right through a band of Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Stretching all the way up sort of on an arc to Maine. If you look at that
wow.
arc there, that's the center of it all. Where we live in the mid-Atlantic, we're going to see about 85 to 90% of the lunar eclipse. But if you move a little further north or a little further west of us, if you get into Ohio, and if you get into like the Lake Ontario, Lake Erie parts of Pennsylvania and New York, you will see it pristine and perfect. The downside is you would have to be in Pennsylvania or New York. So, who wants that?
Well, I'm hearing that, okay, now you've seen the eclipse, or, what percentage of it. Really, some researchers are worried about what happened, what happens afterwards. Potential uptick in fatal car crashes the day of the eclipse.
I'm such a moron, by the way. I'm sorry, and my brain is still working, and I'm only on 1 cup of coffee. I kept saying lunar eclipse. This is a solar eclipse. I apologize. Solar eclipse. It's a solar eclipse, not the moon, the sun. I'm sorry. What an idiot.
But yeah. Well, okay, Larry, don't worry. There's grace. This is Holy Weekend, so there's grace to you. But it's so interesting here. There are actual researchers who have made a connection between these solar eclipses and fatal car crashes. And it's not the moment of the eclipse, apparently. It's either before or after. So it's when everybody's jumping on the road. They're probably trying to get to that perfect spot where there's no one around, where they can then get their little aviation device, maybe their little flyer with a camera up in the air. And then that's when you get into car crashes. I'm guessing maybe you crash into someone, or you drive off a cliff because you're trying to get
and also because other people are looking up at the sun. Maybe, I don't know, but that's
and not
crazy.
Paying attention. That could be. So be careful, folks. If you're driving out there, be careful.
This is the last total eclipse of the sun. And by the way, why we aren't playing that song right now, I'll never know. This is the last total eclipse of the sun that North America will see in the middle of the day until 2044. So you can understand why people are sort of going out of their way to try to find it and be there for it, because who knows where the hell we're going to be 20 years from now. And it's also going to be midday. For instance, when it's stretching across and hitting our area, it's going to be right around. I'm trying to chart out on this. So it's going to be like around 3:20 in the afternoon. It looks like. So I mean, that's that midday. It's not going to be like right at the crack of dawn.
Yeah, it's a good time.
And like I said, it's stretching across a major portion of the country. So there you go. Between the Easter holiday, school spring breaks, and then you got your total eclipse coming up next weekend. By the way, it's on April 8th. That's my dad's birthday. If this isn't a sign, I don't know what is.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's nice, Larry.
So this is where the National Science Foundation, you got to get, like, if you want to watch this thing, first of all, you're not supposed to watch it at all, okay?
Please,
you never
don't
want to
blind yourself, yeah.
Yeah, staring directly into the sun is a bad thing anyway.
You get
but
retinal
then,
burns, they say.
when you get the corona effect of a total eclipse, it's actually, it can do serious damage. Now, you can get special glasses that help you do this, but make sure that they're correct and proper and rated. Or the other thing you can do, and I kid you not, they're suggesting to people that they take a cereal box, get white paper, tape, aluminum foil, scissors, and pin, and they said, and apparently what you're really looking, I remember when I was like 8 years old, it was a solar eclipse, and we did this in school, but it turns out you're not actually looking at the eclipse, you're looking at a shadow of it, like a reflection of it on the back of the. It's like I'm looking at a reflection. That's not really the eclipse. I want to look at the sun.
Yeah, so but you also don't want to burn your eyes.
I know you don't.
Especially
but
at 8 years old.
You go through this whole rigmarole of creating this box with a cereal box and all this stuff, and then when you're done, you realize, oh, so this is going to let me look at the sun? No, you're going to look at a reflection of it and then see the shadow of it.
Maybe for you get the special glasses. You drop the money, go to Amazon. But for the kids, I think it's a fun activity. You can go online, search how to make your own Eclipse viewer, and there are details. You pretty much have everything you need right in your home. You just need to figure out how to do it all. So
yes,
I do remember making those pinhole
fun
cameras
homeschooling
too.
Craft for the kids. Absolutely. It is a pinhole though, and then it's like, well, I can't see through it. It's not big enough. It's fine. You'll be fine. The kids will be fine. It's 5:23.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
5:37 here on this lovely, beautiful Good Friday in the nation's capital and around the world and across the universe for that matter. And we hope you're all equipped and ready to go for an important weekend in the calendar. Thanks for joining us. Coming up later this morning at 6:35, we'll check in with Dan Cox, running for Congress in the 6th District of Maryland. 7:35, Scott Allen, Washington Post reporter, to let us know how things went locally for opening day. And then at 8:05, Jeff Klohat, he is the Chief Curatorial Officer over at the Museum of the Bible. It's Good Friday, Easter weekend, things that you can do at the Museum of the Bible, not just at the beautiful facility downtown, but also online. So we'll get to all of that. It's Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka.
Good Friday, Larry.
Good Friday and happy Friday. All right.
And happy
Earlier
Friday.
this week, of course, we saw before our very eyes the remarkable and horrific scene in Baltimore Harbor as the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed after a Singapore-flagged cargo ship rammed into one of the supporting pylons there. The mess and the required cleanup so that harbor can open again will be palpable. Yesterday, Pete Buttigieg, who, by the way, either sounds like Kermit the Frog or sounds like the who's the woman? Remember the woman who went to jail for the fraudulent company that she had where they extracted blood, the little vials of blood. They made a big movie out of it. Elizabeth Holmes.
She used to wear, exactly. She used
Elizabeth
to wear the
Holmes. You know how she would like put on that fake low voice to sound very important and very business. My guess is that Pete Buttigieg's actual voice is a little bit more like this, and this is how he would normally talk. But he puts on this very fake voice. He talks like this because he wants everyone to understand that he's a very serious man. But it ends up sounding like a Muppet voice. Anyway, I've gotten distracted. Pete Buttigieg yesterday said the branches of the military now have been tasked, along with the Coast Guard, to help clean up the area as part of a rebuilding process. He warned, though, it's not going to be quick, it's not going to be easy, it's not going to be cheap. All of the mangled steel there not only is a major problem in terms of it's not easy to clean up a harbor and making it seaworthy so that ships can continue to transit the harbor, because there's a lot of steel there that needs to be removed. It's heavy. It's in the water. It's dangerous work. But also, I'm told that some of those shipping containers that were on the ship that got damaged or went into the water, it's possible that some of them could have hazardous materials in them.
Yes, that's right.
And that's, of course, an environmental hazard, and they got to make sure that it's as safe as possible as they go through this process. It's going to be a hell of a task to get to a place where we've actually got the harbor able for transit. Yesterday, the Coast Guard official gave an update about that vessel.
Critical thing here is that, as you know, mobilizing resources to take the next steps appropriate to refloat the vessel and remove it from that area. The real critical thing here is that, as you know, a portion of the bridge remains on the bow of that ship, and we will be coordinating very closely with the Army Corps of Engineers and their contractors to first effect the removal of that debris before the vessel can then be removed. The vessel bow is sitting on the bottom because of the weight of that bridge debris on there, and there are underwater surveys that are happening by remotely operated vehicle. Divers will be in the water today to complete that underwater survey There's no indication that there's any flooding or any damage underneath the waterline to that vessel. And that effort will continue, and we'll keep you informed.
Now, that part is good news, that there's no indication that there's any damage to the hole in the bottom where it's sitting against the bottom of the harbor. However, 4,700 cargo containers, 56 containers they know have hazardous materials that could be potential threats. It's also got 1.5 million gallons of fuel and oil because they were planning, it was headed to Sri Lanka. Right, so it's just absolutely loaded up with fuel. Yeah. So it's stable, but to extract it from where it's wedged right now, and get it out of there is no simple task. And
Absolutely.
They've got to do it, but they've got to do it right, because one mistake, and suddenly now you've got a new disaster with hazardous materials or oil and fuel. So this is going to be an issue, an ongoing issue.
The cargo ship itself, the Dolly, is just breathtaking. I mean, it's 985 feet, so about the height of the Eiffel Tower. Massive. And what it was able to carry, the amount of cargo that it was able to carry, I think one of the saddest parts of of this whole situation, obviously, are the lives of those lost. And potentially, I believe earlier this week, they recovered one vehicle that had two bodies in it. And the other vehicle, or potentially other vehicles, they said, are probably buried, submerged under all of the steel and all of the concrete from the bridge collapse itself. So those families will probably never get to lay to rest the physical remains of their loved ones. So I was coming back through the area yesterday, and I was expecting significant delays, and there were delays, but it's just remarkable to recognize how important infrastructure is, and how vulnerable our infrastructure can be, whether you're talking about this shipping container, which from what we know, this was an accident. Unless there's evidence to suggest otherwise, it seems like it's an accident. The ship lost power, but our infrastructure is vulnerable. And imagine if at the same time something happened on 95, that this happened. How in the world could you connect the southern 95? How could you connect to the northeast corridor to the rest of the country?
Well, and let's not forget, the International Highway System was set up as a federal project for national security purposes, so that the American people can move in during a time of war, attack, or another emergency, so the American people can get from point A to point B easier. Also, we're learning more about the ship, the cargo ship. We mentioned this briefly yesterday, I think it was. The Dolly had been in a earlier accident in a port in Antwerp back in 2016. It's unclear now how many of the crew this week were on board during that 2016 incident. Also, at opening day yesterday, the Orioles took a moment to honor the Maryland Transportation Authority and the quick response that the cops had there. We mentioned it as we were watching it. We were speculating, and we always worry when we speculate, but it looked as though from the footage we were seeing that at some point a couple of minutes before the collision, the police had shut down the traffic on the bridge. And it's true that we now know that about a minute and a half, the call was made, the bridge was shut, traffic was shut down just in case the worst of the worst happened, and of course the worst of the worst did happen. That move by quick-thinking officers at that moment at 1:27 in the morning saved countless lives. It is tragic that the construction workers were not, they did not, and I still want answers as to how the word did not get to the workers and how they did not get transportation off that bridge in those 3 minutes that they had to work with. But at the same time, this would have been such a mass casualty event. So the more we reflect on the fast action and the professionalism of the cops at that moment, the more in awe I am. More questions than answers still on the ship colliding with the bridge, but as we learn more, you'll learn more along with us. Continuing now, it's 5:48 here on O'Connor & Company. Patrice, the truly tragic story of this young girl, the high school girl who killed herself in Oklahoma, she went by the name of Nex Dagny, right? Remember?
Yes. Yeah, Nex, yes, Nex.
She was a young girl who, in the latter months of her life identified as non-binary. She got into an altercation in a bathroom that apparently she sort of escalated. Words were exchanged with other high school students, and then she dumped water from her water bottle on one of the kids. It ended up being a physical altercation. She went home that day. The next day, she was found dead.
Yes.
And the left-wing activists going all the way to the Oval Office tried to immediately
President
make
Biden.
this a hate crime against transgender children and directly linked it to laws that have been set up to protect restrooms and private spaces for girls in the state of Oklahoma, and directly to Donald Trump and any Republican who might think that, children should be protected from adults who were trying to convince them to change their gender, right? But the Biden administration, President Biden himself put his name on a statement that made this young woman's death about those of us who are concerned about this issue and how it's affecting children. And it was all a lie. We learned early on that she died not as a result of any trauma, but as a result of some chemical overdose. They still tried to make it about, well, she was sad and depressed and she killed herself because of all of these anti-trans laws in Oklahoma or something stupid like that. Well, now we're getting much, 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 much more information, and it's pretty rough stuff. But and reporters knew about this, by the way, at the time of the reporting. Apparently, the biological father of this young girl sexually abused her in the most horrific and violent ways when she was a child. By the time she was 11 years old, an arrest warrant was issued for her father. He was arrested on charges of rape of a minor under the age of 14. He pled to a 5-year abuse and molestation charge and was in jail, but just recently was released, was rearrested again in Arkansas just 2 weeks before this young girl's suicide. In all of her notes and all of her journals, all of the discussion in there had to do with her family issues and her parents and her father. Her grandmother ended up adopting her, actually.
Yes, yeah.
This is a tragic story in a tragic family about a horrible life that this young girl had that ended as a result of her suicide. And the fact that her death is still being used as a weapon politically tells you the demonic dementia of those people who will stop at nothing to exploit this issue for political gain.
Well, number one, it's a reminder. We don't jump to conclusions until we have all of the facts.
We don't. You and I don't.
Yes, I'm saying society should not jump to conclusions until they have all the facts. Reporters should report all of the facts and not try to hide it, because apparently Washington Post reporting had some hints about some of these issues in Nexa's past, and curiously kind of minimize those if even they reported on it. I really feel for this girl's family, who I'm sure they would desperately want to have her back, and This is the end that she went to find some solace and some relief from the emotional pain that she was experiencing.
Absolutely awful.
And last but not least, let us not forget that a huge part of the transitioning story for a lot of teens and a lot of preteens and a lot of kids is that there are other abuses, potential mental illness, and psychological issues going on with these children. It's not that from birth they felt like they were meant to be a boy and they're deciding to be that way.
That's right.
But very often this is an outlet for them to try to escape from the emotional pain that they're experiencing.
It does not take a PhD to figure out that when a young girl is sexually abused by her father, then one of the psychological reactions that you might go through as you start going through puberty and start looking like a young woman is to make yourself look like a boy.
Yeah.
So that a man who abuses girls won't continue to abuse you. I'm sorry. That's obviously your brain does these things. Meanwhile, Jill Biden this week at a fundraising dinner for the Human Rights Campaign said, and I'm quoting her, "Laws and attitudes can lead to devastating consequences, harm that can't be undone, that leaves parents torn by grief. Parents and grandparents like Sue Benedict may next rest in peace, and the countless others who have lost LGBTQ children to suicide, bullying, and hate." But we know, the Washington Post knew. In their write-up
So
in
wrong.
February 21st, Washington Post made mention of the fact that her biological father was in prison for abuse. They knew exactly what was going on with this family, but they continued to blame libs of TikTok, Chaya Raichik, and Republicans who are calling a halt to the abusive policies in our schools with regard to these. They don't care about these children. They care about retaining power and defeating their political enemies, and they will use the tragic suicide death of a little girl to reach that goal. And they're never.
It's
my
a political
friends,
end for them.
I need you to know, when they start coming after you for the beliefs that you have with regard to transgender policies and these issues, never take a backseat to them with regard to compassion. You're the one. We are the ones who truly care about these children. 554.